Captain Derek Stone stood at the observation window of the ESS Horizon, watching the massive space station grow larger as they approached. Haven's Gate was the jewel of the Galactic Council, a structure so vast it could house millions of beings from across the stars. After decades of working toward faster-than-light travel, humanity had finally arrived. They were no longer alone in the universe. Derek adjusted his dress uniform and turned to his crew. Lieutenant Amy Brooks checked the diplomatic files one more time, her face serious and focused. Commander Vincent Hayes stood near the door with his small team of Marines, their weapons locked away as a sign of peace. This was supposed to be a day of celebration, a day when humanity would take its first steps into galactic society. The docking procedure went smoothly. As the airlock opened, Derek led his delegation into the station. The corridor beyond was enormous, built to accommodate species of all sizes. Some aliens walked on 2 legs like humans, others on 4 or 6. Some flew through the air on wings or glided on cushions of energy. The diversity was breathtaking. A slim, gray-skinned alien approached them. Its translator device hummed to life. "Welcome, humans. I am Coordinator Vex. The Council has been expecting you. Please follow me." They walked through the station for nearly 20 minutes, passing markets, gardens, and public spaces filled with hundreds of different species. Everyone seemed peaceful, going about their business without conflict. Derek felt hope rising in his chest. Maybe humanity could find its place here among the stars. The council chamber was a massive dome with seats arranged in rising circles. Representatives from over 200 species sat in attendance. At the center, on an elevated platform, sat the 5 council elders. Coordinator Vex led the human delegation to a space reserved for them on the main floor. "Honored Council," Derek began, his voice steady and clear. "I am Captain Derek Stone of Earth. On behalf of humanity, I thank you for this audience. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship. We hope to learn from you and contribute what we can to this great community of worlds." The council elders nodded, their expressions unreadable. One of them, a being that looked like flowing water contained in a crystalline form, spoke. "We welcome all peaceful species. You will be evaluated according to our ancient customs." Before Derek could respond, a commotion erupted from one section of the chamber. A group of massive beings stood up, each one over 8 feet tall with thick armor-like skin and 4 arms. Their faces were brutal, with sharp teeth and small, cruel eyes. These were the Krillians, and Derek had read about them in the intelligence briefings. They controlled 40 star systems through military conquest and were known for their warrior culture. The largest Krillian, wearing ornate battle armor, stepped forward. His translator made his voice sound like grinding stones. "I am General Vorgoth of the Krillian Empire. We challenge these humans according to our ancient right. If they wish to join the Council, they must prove their strength." Derek felt his stomach tighten. "We came here for peaceful dialogue, not combat." Vorgoth laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "Then you are weak. The galaxy belongs to the strong. Weak species serve the strong. That is the law." Derek looked to the council elders, hoping for support. The crystalline being spoke again. "The Krillian challenge is their right under ancient treaty. If you refuse, you will be marked as a vassal species and must accept Krillian authority. If you accept, you may prove your worth through combat." "This is insane," Amy whispered beside him. "They're forcing us to fight." Vincent stepped closer to Derek. "Sir, we can't win this. We're not armed, and they outnumber us." Derek's mind raced. Every option looked bad. If they fought, they would likely die. If they refused, humanity would become slaves to the Krillians. Before he could make a decision, Vorgoth moved with shocking speed. The massive alien crossed the distance between them in seconds. What happened next would haunt Derek for the rest of his life. Vorgoth grabbed one of the human diplomats, a young man named Peter Walsh, and lifted him off the ground with 2 of his 4 arms. "Perhaps a demonstration will help you decide," Vorgoth said. "No!" Derek shouted, but it was too late. Vorgoth squeezed, and Derek heard the sickening sound of bones breaking. Peter screamed, then went silent. Vorgoth threw the body aside like garbage and reached for another diplomat, a woman named Karen Hill. Vincent and his Marines rushed forward, but they were unarmed and outnumbered. The Krillians beat them back easily. Karen died next, then 3 Marines were killed when they tried to intervene. The massacre lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, 5 humans lay dead on the chamber floor, and a dozen more were badly injured. The rest of the council chamber sat in silence. No one moved to help. No one protested. They simply watched as if this was normal, as if this happened all the time. Derek knelt beside Peter's broken body, his hands shaking with rage and grief. Amy was crying quietly, trying to help the wounded. Vincent's face was pale, his jaw clenched so tight Derek could hear his teeth grinding. Vorgoth walked back to his seat, not even breathing hard. That is our answer to weakness. Go back to your little world, humans. When you are ready to serve the Krillian Empire, we will be waiting. Coordinator Vex approached Derek quietly. I am sorry for your loss. Please return to your ship. The Council will contact you with their decision. Derek stood slowly, his legs feeling weak. He looked around the chamber one more time. So many species, so many different faces, and not one of them showed sympathy. They looked at the dead humans with indifference, as if human lives meant nothing at all. The walk back to the horizon was silent except for the sound of wounded Marines being carried on stretchers. Derek felt numb, his mind unable to process what had just happened. They had come in peace, and they had been slaughtered for it. As soon as they were back on the ship, Derek went straight to the communications room. He opened a secure channel to Earth and began his report. His voice was flat, emotionless, as he described what happened. But when he finished the factual account, he added something personal. Command, I need you to understand something. The galaxy does not respect peace. It does not respect diplomacy. It only respects strength and violence. The Krillians killed our people in front of the entire Galactic Council, and no one lifted a finger to stop them. If humanity wants to survive out here, we cannot rely on words or treaties. We need to show them what happens when you hurt us. We need to show them what human beings are really capable of when pushed too far. He closed the channel and sat in the dark communications room for a long time. Outside the window, Haven's Gate glittered with lights, beautiful and peaceful. But Derek now knew the truth. The galaxy was not a place of peace and brotherhood. It was a place of predators and prey. Humanity had entered the galaxy as prey. That needed to change. 6 months had passed since the massacre at Haven's Gate. Earth's response had been swift and decisive. While politicians debated and the public mourned, Earth's military leaders made a different kind of decision. They would send a message that the galaxy would never forget. Colonel Jake Manning stood in the briefing room aboard the stealth ship Shadow Knife, looking at the holographic display of Drakkar Prime. The planet was a fortress world on the edge of Krillian space, covered in military installations and protected by thousands of soldiers. It was also where the Krillians were holding 200 human prisoners, colonists taken from supply ships that had been ambushed in neutral space. Jake looked at his team. 50 operators, the best humanity had to offer. Each one had volunteered for this mission knowing they might not come back. Sergeant Lisa Grant checked her equipment one more time, her expression calm and focused. Lieutenant Chris Palmer cleaned his rifle scope with careful precision. Corporal Danny Rich sat quietly, his eyes closed, preparing his mind for what was coming. Listen up, Jake said, his voice cutting through the quiet conversations. We all know what happened at Haven's Gate. We all know friends who died that day. The Krillians think humans are weak. They think they can take our people and do whatever they want because we will not fight back. Tonight, we prove them wrong. He zoomed the hologram in on their primary target. This is the command center in the capital city. Intelligence confirms the prisoners are being held in the basement levels. We have 3 objectives. 1. Extract our people. 2. Eliminate the military leadership. 3. Send a message. We go in quiet, we hit hard, and we leave nothing but ghosts behind. Lisa raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir? Jake's expression hardened. Anyone wearing a Krillian military uniform is a hostile. Anyone who gets between us and our people is a hostile. We did not start this war, but we are going to finish this operation. Any questions? There were none. The insertion went perfectly. The shadow knife dropped them 20 kilometers outside the city under cover of darkness. They moved through the rocky terrain like shadows, their advanced suits masking their heat signatures and muffling any sound. The Krillians had sensors, but human technology had advanced rapidly in the past 6 months. Earth's engineers had been working around the clock, and it showed. They reached the outer walls of the city just after midnight local time. Chris took position on a ridge overlooking the main gate. Through his scope, he could see 2 Krillian guards, their massive forms clearly visible in the moonlight. He adjusted for wind, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger twice. Both guards dropped without a sound, single bullets through their skulls. "Outer gate is clear," Chris whispered into the comm. Jake led the main team through the gate and into the city streets. The architecture was brutal and efficient, just like the Krillians themselves. Large buildings made of dark stone, with narrow windows and thick walls designed to withstand attack. But the Krillians had never faced an enemy like this before. They moved through the city in small teams, each one with a specific target. Danny led his squad to the barracks where off-duty soldiers slept. They placed charges on the supports and moved to the next building. Lisa's team hit the communications center, killing the technicians before they could send a warning. Other teams took out guard posts, patrol checkpoints, and sensor stations. The Krillians did not realize they were under attack until it was too late. Soldiers disappeared from their posts. Patrols failed to report in. By the time the alarm was raised, Jake and his team were already inside the command center. The lobby was empty, the guards dead before they knew what hit them. Jake's team moved up the stairs, clearing rooms with practiced efficiency. They used suppressors on their weapons, and each shot was precise. The Krillians were tough, with thick skin and strong bones, but human bullets were designed to penetrate armor. Headshots and center mass, double tap on every target. On the 3rd floor, they encountered heavier resistance. A squad of Krillian elite guards tried to form a defensive line. The hallway erupted in gunfire, but the humans were faster and more accurate. The guards fell one by one, their heavy weapons too slow to track the quick-moving operators. Jake reached the command room and kicked the door open. Inside, 3 Krillian officers were trying to coordinate a response. They reached for their weapons, but it was over in seconds. Jake put 2 rounds in each of them and moved to the computer terminal. Lisa was already there, plugging in a data spike. "Downloading their files now," she said. "We will have everything in 2 minutes." "Make it 1, Jake replied. "Danny, where are the prisoners?" "Basement level, just like Intel said." "I am on my way down now." Jake listened to the comm chatter as his teams reported in. The mission was going perfectly. Too perfectly. He felt a cold sensation in his gut, the instinct that came from years of combat experience. Something was wrong. "All teams, be advised. This feels like a trap. Stay sharp." His warning came just in time. The doors at both ends of the hallway burst open, and Krillian reinforcements poured in. These were not regular soldiers. They were bigger, faster, and better armed. Elite warriors, the kind that had conquered dozens of worlds. The hallway turned into a war zone. Jake and his team took cover behind desks and equipment, returning fire as the Krillians advanced. The enemy had numbers and strength, but the humans had training and technology. Lisa threw a flashbang grenade that stunned the Krillians, giving the team precious seconds to reposition. Chris's voice came through the comm. "I have eyes on reinforcements coming from the north. At least 50 more hostiles inbound to your position." Jake made a split-second decision. "Lisa, blow the charges. All of them. Right now." "But sir, our people are still in the basement." "Danny will get them out." "Blow the charges." Lisa hesitated for only a moment, then activated the detonator. The explosion started at the barracks and rippled across the city. Buildings collapsed, fuel depots went up in massive fireballs, and the power grid failed. The command center shook, and dust fell from the ceiling. In the confusion, Jake's team pushed forward, fighting their way to the stairs. They could hear Danny on the comm, his voice tense but controlled. "I have the prisoners. We are moving to extraction point Beta. Place is crawling with hostiles." "Copy that. We are on our way." The escape from the command center was a running battle. The Krillians were everywhere, angry and desperate. But the darkness and chaos worked in the humans' favor. They moved through the smoke and flames like demons, appearing from nowhere to strike and then vanishing again. At the extraction point, Danny and his team had the prisoners loaded onto transport vehicles. The colonists looked terrified but alive. Jake's team provided covering fire as the convoy started moving toward the edge of the city. Behind them, Drakkar Prime burned. The military installations were in ruins, and the command structure was destroyed. As they reached the Shadow Knife and lifted off, Jake looked back at the city. Fires lit up the night sky, and secondary explosions continued to rock the fortress. Before they left orbit, Jake recorded a message and broadcast it on all Krillian frequencies. His voice was cold and emotionless. "You took our people. We came and got them back. You killed our diplomats. We killed your leaders. This is your only warning. Return every human prisoner in your territory, or we will come for them. And when we come, we will not leave anyone alive to tell the story. You wanted to test human strength. Now you know. We are the demons you should have feared." The message ended, and the Shadow Knife jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving Drakkar Prime behind. Back on Earth, the news of the raid spread quickly. Some people called it a war crime. Others called it justice. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity had announced its presence in the galaxy, and the announcement had been written in fire and blood. The Krillian Emperor was furious. The raid on Drakkar Prime had humiliated him in front of the entire galaxy. He had expected humans to be easy prey, weak creatures who would beg for mercy. Instead, they had struck deep into Krillian territory and escaped without a single casualty. It was unacceptable. He summoned his finest warriors, the Blood Legion. 5,000 of the most elite soldiers in the Krillian military, veterans of 100 campaigns. Their commander, General Cross, knelt before the Emperor's throne, his 4 arms crossed over his massive chest. "The humans have a colony world called New Texas," the Emperor said, his voice grinding like stone on stone. "It is a farming planet, lightly defended. Take your legion and destroy it. Kill every human you find. Show the galaxy what happens when someone challenges the Krillian Empire." General Cross bowed. "It will be done, my Emperor. The humans will learn to fear us once again." The Blood Legion departed for New Texas 3 days later, their warships cutting through space with confidence. They had fought countless battles and never lost. These humans were skilled, yes, but they were still just one small species against the might of an empire. The Krillians expected an easy victory. They were wrong. Major Kate Sullivan watched the Krillian ships approach from her position in the command bunker, buried deep beneath the surface of New Texas. She had been on the planet for 2 months, preparing for exactly this scenario. Earth's intelligence network had intercepted Krillian communications and predicted the attack. Kate and her quick reaction force had evacuated every civilian and turned the entire planet into a trap. Captain Roy Henderson stood beside her, looking at the tactical display. Roy commanded the Colonial Defense Militia, farmers and ranchers who had trained for basic combat. They were good people, but they were not soldiers. That is why Kate had sent them away with the civilians. "They are landing in Sector 7, Roy said. 5 ships, probably 2,000 troops in the first wave." Kate smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them land. Let them think they have won." The Krillian dropships came down in a wide valley, their engines scorching the grass black. The ramps lowered, and warriors poured out, weapons ready for combat. They spread out in standard assault formation, expecting to encounter resistance. Instead, they found empty fields and abandoned buildings. General Cross studied the settlement through his tactical visor. The buildings were intact, no signs of battle. It looked like the humans had simply vanished. He did not like it. "Spread out," he ordered his troops. "Search every structure. Find the humans." The Blood Legion moved through the settlement carefully, checking each building. They found food on tables, as if people had left in the middle of a meal. They found clothes in closets, toys in yards. But no humans. It was like everyone had simply disappeared. Then the first explosion hit. A warehouse on the edge of the settlement erupted in flames, the blast strong enough to knock nearby Krillians off their feet. Before they could react, more explosions followed. Buildings rigged with charges detonated one after another, turning the settlement into a death trap. Cross roared orders, trying to organize his troops, but the explosions were just the beginning. From hidden positions in the hills surrounding the valley, human snipers opened fire. Chris Palmer was among them, his rifle scope focused on Krillian officers. Each shot was carefully aimed, each bullet found its target. Officers dropped, their complex armor no match for human precision at long range. The Blood Legion tried to return fire, but they could not see their attackers. The humans were too far away, hidden too well. Krillian weapons were designed for close to medium-range combat, where their strength and aggression gave them an advantage. They had nothing that could reach the distant hills where the snipers hid. "Fall back to the ships," Cross ordered, his pride wounded but his tactical sense intact. But when his troops reached the landing zone, they found another surprise. Their ships had been sabotaged, fuel lines cut, engines filled with explosive charges. They were not going anywhere. Lieutenant Ben Clark smiled from his position inside a nearby cave system, watching the data scroll across his portable computer. He had spent the last 3 days planting viruses in every Krillian system he could access. Their communications were compromised, their sensors fed false information, their weapons targeting systems glitched at random intervals. The Krillians did not even know they were fighting blind. Kate gave the order, and the real assault began. 50 Special Forces operators emerged from hidden bunkers and cave systems, moving in coordinated teams. They did not fight the way the Krillians expected. They did not charge forward in heroic assaults. Instead, they used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks that left the enemy confused and demoralized. Danny Rich led his team through the forested areas, setting ambushes along the routes the Krillians used for patrol. His team would strike hard, kill a dozen enemies, then vanish before reinforcements arrived. The Krillians tried to pursue, but they were too slow and too loud. The humans could hear them coming from hundreds of meters away. Lisa Grant specialized in traps and demolitions. She set up sophisticated devices that looked like natural terrain but exploded when stepped on. She rigged trees to fall when triggered, crushing entire squads. She even used the Krillians' own equipment against them, hacking their automated defense systems to fire on their own troops. Days passed, and the Blood Legion's numbers dwindled. They were being hunted, and they knew it. The psychological impact was devastating. Krillian warriors were raised to be fearless, to face any enemy in direct combat. But how do you fight an enemy you cannot see? How do you defeat soldiers who strike from nowhere and disappear like ghosts? At night, the humans used drones equipped with speakers to broadcast sounds through the darkness. Whispers in Krillian language, promising death. Recordings of their fallen comrades screaming. Sometimes just silence, which was worse. The Krillians could not sleep, could not rest. Every shadow might hide a human soldier. Every sound might be the last thing they heard. Sergeant Nick Foster moved through the Krillian camp at night, his suit rendering him nearly invisible. He was not there to kill, though he could have. He was there to watch, to listen, to understand the enemy. What he heard confirmed what Kate suspected. The Blood Legion was broken. Their morale was shattered, their confidence destroyed. He reported back to Kate, and she made the decision. It was time to end this. The final assault came at dawn. The surviving Krillians, less than 300 out of the original 5,000, had gathered in a defensive position on high ground. They had spent the night building barricades, preparing for a last stand. They expected the humans to attack straight up the hill. Instead, Kate's forces surrounded them completely. Snipers took positions on every side, covering all possible escape routes. Then Kate herself walked up the hill, alone and unarmed, carrying a white flag. General Cross watched her approach, his 4 arms gripping weapons. She was small compared to him, barely reaching his chest. But she walked with confidence, without fear. "I am Major Kate Sullivan," she said, her voice amplified by a speaker so all the Krillians could hear. "Your Emperor sent you here to kill civilians and destroy our colony. You failed. Now you have a choice. Surrender and be treated as prisoners of war, or fight and die here. I promise you, if you choose to fight, none of you will leave this planet alive." Cross wanted to refuse. His pride demanded it. But he looked at his troops, saw the fear in their eyes, saw how few remained. He thought about the past days, the constant terror, the feeling of being hunted by invisible demons. He had fought in many wars, but he had never faced anything like this. Slowly, he lowered his weapons. "We surrender." The other Krillians followed his example, laying down their arms. Kate's forces moved in, securing the prisoners efficiently. Not a single shot was fired. As the prisoners were loaded onto transport ships, Kate made sure the entire event was recorded. The galaxy needed to see this. The mighty Blood Legion, the warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, defeated and captured by a force 50 times smaller. The recording was broadcast across every major communications network in the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear of the Krillians watched in amazement. The humans had not just won a battle. They had broken the legend of Krillian invincibility. On the Galactic Council station, representatives from hundreds of worlds watched the footage in stunned silence. One ambassador, an insect-like being from a species that had been conquered by the Krillians decades ago, spoke what many were thinking. "Perhaps we have been afraid of the wrong species." The Krillian Emperor received the news in his throne room. His finest warriors, his Blood Legion, defeated and humiliated. He threw his throne across the room in rage, but beneath the anger was something new. Something he had never felt before. Fear. The Krillian Emperor refused to accept defeat. 2 major losses had wounded his pride, but he still commanded vast military forces across 40 star systems. He would not bow to a species he considered inferior. Instead, he made a decision that would seal his fate and the fate of his empire. He ordered the execution of human prisoners. 50 colonists who had been captured months earlier were brought before live cameras, forced to kneel in the Imperial Plaza on the Krillian homeworld. The Emperor himself appeared, his massive form towering over the prisoners. "Let the humans see what happens to those who defy us," he declared. Then, one by one, the prisoners were killed while the execution was broadcast across every major communications network in the galaxy. The galaxy watched in horror. Even species that had no love for humans found the display distasteful. The Galactic Council issued a statement of condemnation, but as always, it was just words. No action, no consequences. The Council had proven itself to be nothing more than a debate society, powerless to stop real violence. On Earth, the reaction was different. The executions were shown on every news network, and the public outcry was immediate. People filled the streets demanding action. Politicians gave speeches about justice and retribution. But in the secured military command centers, a different kind of meeting was taking place. General Patricia Moore sat at the head of the table, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, her eyes hard as steel. She had spent 40 years in the military, rising through the ranks to become the Supreme Commander of Human Special Operations. She had seen combat on 3 continents and had led operations that most people would never know about. Now, she faced the biggest decision of her career. "The Emperor thinks he can execute our people on live broadcast, and we will do nothing," she said, her voice calm but carrying absolute authority. "He thinks we will file diplomatic protests and then go away. He is wrong. I am authorizing Operation Reckoning." Around the table, the commanders of various special operations units nodded. They had been preparing for this possibility for weeks. Colonel Jake Manning leaned forward, studying the holographic map of Krillian space that floated above the table. "We are talking about a decapitation strike on the Imperial government," Jake said. "This is not a raid on a border planet. This is an assault on their homeworld, their capital city, their palace. The place will be crawling with security." "I am aware," General Moore replied. "That is why I am sending 500 operators. Every special forces unit we have, all deploying simultaneously across 30 locations in Krillian space. We are going to cut the head off the snake, and we are going to do it in a way they will never forget." Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner spoke up. He was a naval special warfare officer, a specialist in underwater and space-based combat operations. "Rules of engagement, General." Moore's expression did not change. "The Emperor declared war when he executed our people. In war, enemy combatants are legitimate targets. The Krillian government, their military leadership, their war council, all of them are fair game. We are not targeting civilians, but anyone who stands between us and our objectives will be removed. No mercy, no hesitation. They showed none to our people, and we will show none to theirs. Master Sergeant Claire Johnson had been deep undercover in Krillian territory for 6 months. She had posed as a trader from a neutral species, gathering intelligence and building a network of contacts. Her information would be crucial for the operation. The palace security has been increased since New Texas, Claire reported. But I have mapped out the weak points. The Emperor believes his own propaganda. He thinks he is invincible, that no one would dare attack him on his own world. That arrogance is our advantage. The planning took 3 days. Every detail was reviewed, every contingency prepared for. The operation would be the largest coordinated special forces action in human history. Units would deploy across Krillian space simultaneously, hitting military bases, communications hubs, and government facilities. But the main target was the Imperial Palace on the homeworld of Krilla. Jake would lead that assault personally, with a team of 100 operators. They would be the tip of the spear, the ones who went directly after the Emperor and his war council. The deployment was done in complete secrecy. Special forces units moved into position over the course of 2 weeks, using civilian cargo ships and stolen alien vessels to avoid detection. By the time the Krillians realized something was wrong, it would be too late. The attack began at midnight Krillian Standard Time. Across 30 locations, human operators struck simultaneously. Military bases erupted in explosions as munitions depots were destroyed. Communications towers went dark as their control systems were hacked and fried. Government officials were assassinated in their homes, their security forces overwhelmed by soldiers who moved like ghosts. On Krilla, Jake and his team infiltrated the capital city using the intelligence Claire had provided. They moved through underground maintenance tunnels, avoiding the heavy security on the surface. The palace was a massive structure, built to impress and intimidate. It had walls 10 meters thick and was defended by thousands of elite guards. But the humans did not attack the walls. They came up from below. The tunnels led to the palace basement, where the mechanical systems and power generators were located. Lisa Grant and her demolitions team went to work immediately, placing charges on critical support structures. They were not trying to destroy the palace, not yet. They were creating chaos, cutting power, forcing the defenders to respond to threats from multiple directions. Alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Guards rushed toward the basement, thinking it was the main attack. They were wrong. While they focused below, Jake led the main assault team up through a secondary entrance, a service corridor used by palace staff. The fighting was brutal and close quarters. The hallways of the palace became killing zones as special forces operators engaged Krillian guards. The Krillians had strength and numbers, but the humans had superior training and technology. Every corner was cleared with precision, every room swept efficiently. The palace guards had trained for external attacks, not for enemies already inside their walls. They were confused, disorganized, responding to threats from directions they had never prepared for. Jake's team cut through them like a knife, moving deeper into the palace. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner led a separate team that assaulted the War Council chambers. The Krillian military leadership was meeting in emergency session, trying to coordinate a response to the attacks across their territory. They never got the chance. Alex's team breached the chamber with explosive charges, and the room filled with smoke and gunfire. When the smoke cleared, the entire War Council was dead. Meanwhile, Danny Rich and his team secured the communications center. They did not destroy it. Instead, Ben Clark plugged into the system and took control. Every camera in the palace, every communication channel, was now under human control. The galaxy would watch what happened next. Jake reached the throne room after fighting through 3 levels of security. The doors were massive, made of some metal alloy that could probably withstand a tank shell. Lisa placed shaped charges on the hinges and everyone took cover. The explosion was deafening, and the doors fell inward with a thunderous crash. The throne room was enormous, with a ceiling that stretched 20 meters high. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat the Emperor. He was even larger than the other Krillians, a monster of muscle and armor. Around him stood his personal guard, the best warriors the Empire could produce. "So the humans finally show themselves," the Emperor said, his voice booming across the room. "You think you can kill me in my own palace? I am eternal. I am power itself." Jake did not respond with words. He raised his rifle and fired. The bullet struck the Emperor in the chest, and the giant alien staggered back. His armor had absorbed most of the impact, but he was wounded. His guards roared and charged forward. The battle that followed was chaos. The throne room became a war zone as elite guards clashed with special forces operators. The Krillians fought with savage ferocity, but the humans fought with cold precision. Every shot counted, every movement calculated. Jake's team focused their fire on the Emperor, who had recovered from the initial shot and was now fighting back with a massive energy weapon. Bolts of plasma tore through the air, scorching stone and flesh. 2 operators went down, their armor melted through. But the rest pressed forward, spreading out to divide the enemy's attention. Chris Palmer found a position behind a toppled column and took careful aim. He waited for the perfect moment, when the Emperor turned to fire at another target. The shot was over 400 meters across the throne room, through smoke and chaos. But when Chris fired, the bullet found its mark. It struck the Emperor in the eye, penetrating through to the brain. The Emperor fell, his massive body crashing to the floor. The sound echoed through the throne room, and for a moment, everything stopped. The guards stared at their fallen leader in disbelief. Then Jake's voice cut through the silence. "It is over. Surrender or die." Some guards chose to fight and died quickly. Others laid down their weapons, their will broken by the death of their Emperor. Within minutes, the throne room was secure. Ben Clark activated the communication system, broadcasting the scene across every network in the galaxy. The image was clear. The Emperor of the Krillian Empire, the being who had ruled through fear and violence for decades, lay dead on the floor of his own throne room. Standing over him were human soldiers, their weapons still raised, their faces grim and determined. General Moore's message played over the broadcast. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. For too long, the Krillian Empire has terrorized peaceful species. They have conquered worlds, enslaved populations, and murdered anyone who dared to resist. When humanity sought to join the galactic community in peace, they responded with violence. They killed our diplomats, kidnapped our colonists, and executed prisoners on live broadcast. They believed we would accept this treatment. They were wrong. She paused, letting the words sink in. We came to your palace. We killed your Emperor. We destroyed your war council. We did this because you gave us no choice. We wanted peace, but you forced us into war. Now understand this clearly. Any species that harms human beings, any government that threatens our people, will face the same fate. We do not seek conquest, but we will not tolerate aggression. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The broadcast ended, and the galaxy fell silent. The Krillian Empire, which had seemed so powerful, so invincible, collapsed within days. Without the Emperor and the War Council, the various military commanders turned on each other, fighting for control. Vassal species saw their opportunity and rebelled. Within a month, the empire that had controlled 40 star systems had broken into dozens of warring factions. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humanity had proven they were not prey. They were predators, and they showed no mercy to those who threatened them. 2 years had passed since the fall of the Krillian Empire. The galaxy was still adjusting to the new reality. Humanity had proven itself as a military power, but they had also shown restraint. After the Emperor's death, human forces withdrew back to their own territory. They did not occupy Krillian worlds or claim their resources. They simply made their point and left. The Galactic Council chamber looked different now. The seats were still arranged in rising circles, but the atmosphere had changed. Where once there had been casual arrogance among the stronger species, now there was caution, respect, and in some cases fear. Ambassador Helen Price represented Earth at the Council. She was a diplomat by training, someone who preferred negotiation to violence. But she had learned the hard lesson that the galaxy respected strength more than words. She carried herself with quiet confidence, knowing that behind her peaceful words stood the most effective military force the galaxy had ever seen. The Council was debating a new crisis. A coalition of criminal organizations called the Chain had grown powerful by trading in slaves and illegal weapons. They controlled trade routes through several sectors and had recently begun demanding protection payments from dozens of worlds. The Council had issued formal complaints, but the chain ignored them. Now, they had delivered an ultimatum. The holographic display at the center of the chamber showed a message from the chain's leadership. A being that looked like a cross between a lizard and a spider spoke with a translator. The Galactic Council has 1 week to meet our demands. Transfer 5 billion credits to our accounts and grant us official recognition as a sovereign government. If you refuse, we will attack Council member worlds. We have 10,000 ships and millions of warriors. We are not afraid of your debates and resolutions. The chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Some species wanted to pay. Others wanted to fight but lacked the military strength. The crystalline elder who had witnessed humanity's first arrival spoke. This is an impossible situation. If we pay, we reward aggression and invite more demands. If we fight, we risk massive casualties. Does anyone have a solution? Helen raised her hand and stood. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew what human involvement meant. The chain believes they can threaten this council because you have shown them weakness, Helen said calmly. They believe that if they gather enough ships and make enough threats, you will surrender. They are wrong. With the Council's permission, let humanity handle this problem. There was immediate resistance from some quarters. A representative from a species called the Vorash spoke up, his voice trembling. We have seen what human military forces can do. The Krillian Empire fell in a matter of days. But the chain is different. They are spread across multiple systems. They have no central government to decapitate. How can you possibly defeat them? Helen smiled, and there was something cold in that expression. You are thinking about this wrong. We do not need to defeat their entire organization. We just need to remove the leadership. Colonel Manning and his team specialize in that kind of operation. The vote was close, but ultimately the Council agreed. They authorized human forces to act against the chain. Some members did so reluctantly, afraid of what humanity might do with such authority. But they were more afraid of what the chain would do if left unchecked. Colonel Jake Manning received the orders while at the Special Forces training facility on Earth. He was officially retired from active combat duty, spending his time teaching the next generation of operators. But for this mission, General Moore had asked him to return to the field one more time. He assembled a team of 200 operators, including many veterans from the Krillian campaigns. Captain Doug Stevens would be his second in command. Doug had joined Special Forces after the New Texas operation and had proven himself in dozens of missions since. Lieutenant Maya Chen was the youngest member of the team, barely 23 years old, but she had scored highest in her training class in every category. The intelligence on the chain's leadership was solid. Claire Johnson had spent months tracking their movements and communications. The chain's leaders were meeting at a hidden station in neutral space, a massive facility that housed their command structure and served as their base of operations. It was heavily defended, but Claire had found a way in. The station has a blind spot in its sensor coverage, Claire explained during the mission briefing. It was designed to be invisible, to hide from law enforcement. That same stealth technology makes it hard for them to detect incoming threats. We can get a small team inside before they know we are there. Jake studied the station layout. It was essentially a small city in space, with docking bays, living quarters, command centers, and defensive installations. Thousands of people lived and worked there, most of them criminals and mercenaries. We are not going in small, Jake decided. We are going in with everything. 200 operators, simultaneous entry from 6 access points. We hit them fast and hard, take control of the command center, and eliminate the leadership. Mission time from entry to extraction, 20 minutes. Doug raised an eyebrow. 20 minutes? Sir, that station is huge. Which is why we practiced this scenario 50 times over the past week. Everyone knows their role, everyone knows their timing. We have trained for this. Now we execute. The approach to the station was done in complete silence. The human ships moved through space with their engines powered down, drifting on momentum alone. They wore no identification, carried no signals. They were ghosts until they wanted to be seen. The breach came from 6 points simultaneously. Explosive charges blew open airlocks, and Special Forces operators poured in wearing full space assault gear. The defenders were caught completely off guard. They had grown comfortable in their hidden station, never expecting anyone to find them, much less attack them. The fighting was intense but brief in each sector. The operators moved through the station with practiced efficiency, clearing rooms and hallways. Maya led her squad through the residential section, where many of the chain's mid-level commanders lived. They encountered resistance, but the enemy was disorganized, responding to an attack they had not prepared for. Sector 3 secure, Maya reported over the comm, moving to Objective Beta. Jake's team went straight for the command center, which was located at the heart of the station. They fought through 3 defensive checkpoints, each one manned by heavily armed guards. But the guards were criminals, not soldiers. They fought for profit, not loyalty. When the first few fell, the rest broke and ran. The command center doors were reinforced and locked. Lisa Grant placed breaching charges and stepped back. Fire in the hole. The explosion shook the corridor, and the doors twisted off their hinges. Jake's team entered to find the chain's leadership in the middle of an emergency meeting. 15 beings from different species, all of them wanted criminals with prices on their heads. They reached for weapons, but it was far too late. The fight lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, the entire leadership of the chain lay dead. Doug moved to the computer systems and began downloading everything: records of transactions, lists of associates, accounts, and assets. This information would be turned over to law enforcement agencies across the galaxy. All teams, primary objective complete, Jake announced over the comm, begin extraction. The withdrawal was as coordinated as the entry. Teams moved back to their extraction points, taking no prisoners but also not engaging in unnecessary violence. They were professionals doing a job, not a mob seeking revenge. As the last team left the station, Lisa activated the charges she had planted throughout the critical systems. The station did not explode, but its power grid, life support, and propulsion systems were all disabled. The survivors would be able to evacuate in escape pods, but the station itself would never function again. The human ships departed as silently as they had arrived, leaving the crippled station drifting in space. Within hours, law enforcement vessels from a dozen different species arrived to take custody of the survivors. The chain's leadership was gone, their base destroyed, their organization in chaos. The operation had taken exactly 18 minutes from breach to extraction. Not a single human operator had been killed or seriously wounded. When the news reached the Galactic Council, the reaction was mixed. Relief that the threat was ended so quickly, but also unease at how easily humans had accomplished what seemed impossible. Ambassador Helen stood before the Council to deliver the after-action report. The chain's leadership has been eliminated. Their base of operations is destroyed. We have provided all intelligence gathered to appropriate law enforcement agencies. Member worlds are no longer under threat from this organization. The Crystalline Elder spoke. The Council is grateful for human assistance. Your efficiency is remarkable, if somewhat unsettling. On behalf of the Council, I would like to offer Earth a permanent seat among the 5 Elder positions, with full authority over security matters. Helen considered the offer for a moment, then shook her head. We appreciate the honor, but we must decline. Earth prefers to remain independent. We will continue to cooperate with the Council when our interests align, but we will not take on the burden of galactic governance. That responsibility belongs to all of you. There was surprise at the refusal. Most species would have jumped at the chance for such power and influence. But humans had proven they did not want to rule the galaxy. They just wanted to be left alone, and they would ensure that happened by any means necessary. As Helen left the council chamber, she passed by groups of ambassadors from various species. She heard whispers, fragments of conversations. Some called humans heroes. Others called them demons. But all of them spoke with respect, with the understanding that humanity was not a species to be trifled with. Back on Earth, Jake Manning truly retired from active duty. He returned to the training facility, where he spent his days teaching young operators the skills they would need. On the first day of each new class, he gave the same speech. We did not ask to be warriors. We came to the galaxy seeking peace and friendship. But we were met with violence, with cruelty, with the assumption that we were weak. We had to prove otherwise, and that proof was written in blood. Never forget why we fight. We do not fight for conquest or glory. We fight so that our people can live in peace. We fight so that those who would harm us learn to fear the consequences." He would pause, looking at the young faces before him. "The galaxy calls us special forces. They whisper about us in their councils and in their homes. Some call us heroes. Some call us monsters. I do not care what they call us. I only care that they remember. We are humans, and we will show mercy until you take it from us. After that, we show nothing but the efficiency of professional soldiers doing an unpleasant job." In orbit above Earth, the ESS Horizon had been converted into a museum. It was a reminder of where everything began, of the day humanity learned that the galaxy was not a friendly place. On the main deck, a memorial listed the names of the 2 diplomats who had died at Haven's Gate, along with the 3 Marines who had died trying to protect them. Visitors came from all across human space to see the ship and pay their respects. But visitors also came from other species, aliens who wanted to understand the humans better. They would read the memorial, learn the history, and begin to comprehend why humanity had responded the way they did. A young Krillian, part of the generation born after the fall of their empire, stood before the memorial with his human guide. He was one of many Krillians who now lived peacefully alongside humans, part of the rebuilding process. "My grandfather fought in the Blood Legion," the young Krillian said quietly. "He was captured at New Texas. He told me stories about that battle, about how terrifying the humans were. He said they fought like demons who served angels." The human guide nodded. "We fight fiercely, but we fight for good reasons. We do not want war, but we will not accept slavery or subjugation. That is the lesson we taught the galaxy." The Krillian looked at the names on the memorial. These 5 people, they started everything. If the Emperor had not killed them, would things have been different? "Perhaps," the guide said. "But your Emperor made a choice. He chose violence over peace. He chose cruelty over diplomacy. He forced humanity to show the galaxy what we were capable of. In a way, those 5 people did not die in vain. Their deaths bought peace for billions, because now everyone understands. You do not mess with humans." The phrase had spread across the galaxy, whispered in 1,000 different languages. "You do not mess with humans." It was not a boast or a threat. It was simply a statement of fact, a lesson learned through hard experience. Humanity had secured its place in the galaxy, not through aggression or conquest, but through the demonstration of overwhelming force when pushed too far. They had shown they could be peaceful neighbors and terrible enemies. The choice of which they would be was up to everyone else. Colonel Manning's words echoed through the training facility as another class of operators prepared to graduate. "We are special forces. The galaxy may fear us, but our own people sleep safely because we stand watch. That is all that matters. We fight so others do not have to. We carry the burden so they can live in peace. Never forget that." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity wanted peace, but they were prepared for war. They showed mercy until you took it from them, and after that, they showed nothing but the cold efficiency that had toppled empires and broken criminal organizations. They were called special forces, and their reputation was enough to keep most threats at bay. Sometimes, the best way to ensure peace is to be very, very good at war.